Well, hello and happy Friday, and welcome back to another Friday Love and Learn. As each and every week we get together with some of our friends from across the state and sometimes even around the country to join us for a little Friday reflection on the things that we loved and the things that we learned over the course of this past week. So always a fun time, and I'm grateful today to Ben Hanika of ESU 4 and Sarah Essay of ESU 10. And Aaron Bredenkamp of ESU 3 for taking a little bit of time out of their day here on a Friday to chat with us. And so really looking forward to our conversation. I would encourage folks that are listening in to place your comments in the chat about your loves, your learns from this week, or any of the fun offshoots that we sometimes can get into on the show. And to begin with, I'm going to give each of our guests here an opportunity to do a little bit of an introduction and kind of a send-off of sorts, maybe an early one here. I'm sure Ben's got a lot of great moments ahead of him, but I wanted to make sure we got him on the show because, well, Ben, I'll let you talk about your future plans.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So I am headed back to Auburn Public Schools to be the band director. That was the role I was in before moving across town here to the ESU 4, and I'm just really looking forward to getting back to being with students and teaching music again.
Awesome, and we're grateful, that you, like I said, took some time today to check in so we could all kind of say hey, as that'll be a transition, but one that sounds like you're really excited for, so that's really happy for you in that. And Sarah?
I'm Sarah Essay, and this is my first year at ESU 10. Before that, I was an English teacher for 10 years. So at ESU 10, I'm a teaching and learning coordinator, and I work with secondary ELA and ed tech and various other things as you get settled at an ESU. So I've loved it so far. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we need to talk sometime about kind of starting this role in the chaos that has been this last year, so I definitely understand where you're coming from with that too, as also having that ELA background, and I definitely want to welcome Aaron Bredenkamp on for the second time, also a friend of mine from our days at Westside High School. So I'll let Aaron give his own introduction.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I must have done a good job the first time. I feel like the guys on Johnny Carson's show that gets asked back numerous times, so we'll keep the tally going, right?
We had ugly sweaters the last time.
Yeah. So I'm Bredenkamp of ESU 3. My main areas of focus are MTSS and PBIS. And that kind of comes from my background, not only as an administrator at Westside High School, but also my days in the alternative classroom. So.
Yeah, and so thanks to everybody for joining us, and again to those that are joining in live online, and would ask you to kind of think about sharing your loves and your learns with us. We're going to start with our love for this past week, and so Ben, what is one love that that stood out to you over the course of this past week?
Yeah, so if there's time, I may share two, but I'll start with one that definitely happened just a couple days ago. I got to be, so some of our school districts, and I'm sure this might be true in you guys' area too, because of the uncertainty of this year, they started like way earlier than normal, like right at the beginning of August. And so their last day with students was like, I think Tuesday. And they had me come out on Wednesday to do a Canvas training for 6 hours with the staff. And I think I was like the last thing that they had this school year before they could like check out with their administrator. So you never know what to expect, but these teachers were rock stars. They were really into it. They were engaged. They asked great questions. We had work time in the afternoon, and they were helping each other out. It was really cool to see. Like, you would have never guessed that by watching them that they were like hours away from their summer vacation, basically. So I appreciated them for playing along and being good sports in that training. The other quick thing, there were a couple of days this week where I got to go over to the high school in Auburn and see my future students, because we had some auditions and just some things to try and take care of before their last day of school, and just got me really excited about this summer and next year and everything. So those are my loves.
Oh, well, I want to ask too, as a band director, how many instruments do you personally play, Ben?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. The best way to explain that is like if you're an elementary ed major, you have to take math methods, English methods, so on. So I had to take methods classes on all the instruments in college, so I knew how to play them. So I really truly do know how to play them all now. That's at varying levels of achievement. but for the most part, like if I'm teaching beginning band lessons, if it's saxophone day, I can take a saxophone over and play and sound at least as good as a fifth grader. And if it's flute day, I can do that too. So my main instrument growing up though was trumpet, and I also took piano lessons.
Represent for the trumpets. I was a trumpet too.
All right, rock on. That's great.
That's what I was going to ask. What's our musical talent around the horn here, I guess? So Sarah, trumpet and anything?
I played piano, but not well. Like my last piano concert, I didn't practice. I was like in 8th grade and it went terribly. And I was like, done. Go out with a really bad performance and switch to something else. So yeah, I played trumpet in a really small school. So it's fun.
Yeah, I quit piano at the end of 8th grade too, and that was like a huge mistake, because had I stayed with it through high school, because that's another methods class you have to take in college is piano methods. Had I stayed with piano through high school, I probably would have been good enough to test out and not have to take 2 years of piano methods. So that was an oops on my part.
Adolescence.
Yeah. Turns out you really don't know everything like you think.
Yeah. If that was the worst thing from your adolescence, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, that's right. It's all matter of perspective.
That is a good point. That is a good point.
I played anything. I played anything you could hit with a stick. So I was a drummer, but I wouldn't even call myself a drummer. I was more of a percussionist. I gravitated towards like the triangle, the giant chimes, things like that. So something that I could bang on once or twice and then sit down for the rest of the song. That was my musical talent.
Then you just drop the
yeah.
That's really fun. I do not play any instruments. I tried guitar for a little bit, but I have this awkward strum that really just goes with like the downbeat, and I don't really think that I've made it very far with that, but it's fun to play. And so I'm sure many days like that ahead for you, Ben, in helping out awkward people that can't really play like me. So Deb wanted to share out that she's going to miss you, and I think we all will. And really happy that you get to go, do the thing that you love. And Deb Herrick's, all right, like piccolo player, learning something new. There's even a learn for me here in the midst of the show today. And she's
I didn't realize that. I'm glad that Deb shared that.
So I'm going to volunteer Deb if you need like to Zoom. We do distance learning here in the ESU, and maybe Deb can work out some small group with your band.
Yeah. So is this the foundation of the ESU marching band right here today on this show? Is that what we're experiencing?
Yeah, we're going to put an all call out. If you're watching, please put like in the comments what you can contribute. We'll bring everybody together at next PDO. It'll be great. Yeah,
we'll be so good that they'll just tell the Cornhusker marching band to sit one out and let us perform.
We are now the pride of Nebraska now. That's right.
We will be.
Step aside, let the ESUs through. That'd be really fun. All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. Thanks for sharing your love. And Sarah, what was your love from this past week?
I'm actually in it right now. I'm at a literacy cadre meeting. I stepped out for a minute to do this. And this is the first time I have met so many of these people in person. Being my first year, like I've just seen people's faces. And so I really am excited to meet people in person. And I'm really looking forward to when we can actually have like PDO and SDA and all of that in person again, because it's just so fun to be in a room with colleagues and people who are excited about the same things that you are. So I'm really happy to be here today.
Gosh, isn't that such a joy? I got to go to Kearney to a simple meeting on Monday and meet some people that I had not met in person. Coincidentally, so when Aaron was on for the ugly sweater episode, Allison Smith, I had never met in person, and I got to meet her the other day, and that was so fun and such a joy to like anytime to be around people that I've just been living in this Zoom box. So yeah, that's a great love for sure. That's all right.
And
you're in a different office. Go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah, Sarah's.
I'm borrowing an office, and somebody's calling this person.
Just go for it.
Sorry, I would answer. Yeah. Put him on speaker. That's funny you said that about Allison Smith. She's actually my mentor, and so she's my SDA mentor, and so I met her for the first time in person then as well. So that's funny, meeting the same person. It's exciting.
Good people. Well, yeah. So then, Aaron, your love from this past week?
I'm loving the conversations I'm having with educators. I don't know where you guys are at in kind of the planning process for the work you're going to do in the summer and next year with the school districts, but the conversations I'm having with schools just blowing me away, because kind of what Ben said, they should be exhausted and they should be ready to throw the towel in, and they should just be like, I don't want anything to do with you. But man, they are jumping right back on the wagon. They are having conversations. It's almost kind of like this last year was kind of a hiccup, and we're going to go right back to all the goals and everything we wanted to achieve. And we're going to abandon excuses of what occurred this year and really just move forward. And it just blows me away. And that I keep using this word over and over and over for the educators this year. And I don't know if it's the best word choice, but I feel like it really fits. But just the tenacity of our educators. I started my teaching career with Teach for America, and they always talked about relentless pursuit, that you had to have relentless pursuit. And I just feel like we really witnessed that in our field this year. And I'm really, really loving those conversations I'm having with schools for the summer work and for the next fall, because they are ready to go. They are ready to reattack things with 110% effort and get everything back engaged to where they were prior to COVID. So I'm just loving those. And a personal love is the energy I'm getting from the spring and summer kind of combines really well with that. So like I get energized with these conversations, and then I leave the office and the sun's out and it's nice out. So it's just been nice to feel energized by both work and play due to the weather and also the conversations with fellow educators.
Oh, and that reconnecting, I kind of want to like weave a thread of that back into what Sarah was saying, whether you're meeting people for the first time or just reestablishing those in-person connections that, I found that as well, but kind of rather shockingly, people that I like, classroom practitioners who I'm like, they're probably over it. We'll see you in August as far as like mental capacity for wanting to pick things up and move those forward. And it's strangely felt like kind of the opposite. And so that's so great to hear that you're seeing that as well, Aaron. And how inspiring is that? And that's my love. So I had two. One was definitely getting to go in person to the Simple training, and the other one was to finally edit and share out what was my love from last week, which was episode of the podcast, which I'm going to throw it up here. I don't do this all the time, but this one was like really special. Where Brooke Cavan reached out and told me that her cousin, Camille O'Neill, who is a junior at Millard West, just had a really unique story and a great experience in her physics class with educator Tyler Berzina. And we got a chance to actually go there in person last week and have a really great chat. Record that obviously, and then share that out. And so I started posting all those things to socials today, and a lot of good feedback for Camille, who has, I'll leave you to listen to it, but persevered through quite a bit and has a great attitude and a great approach to her education. And wow, Mr. Berzino, I was like, sign my kiddos up to have him as a teacher, because he, like you're saying, Aaron, in the midst of all of like the hardships and limitations that the pandemic learning scenarios have provided, just led with a big heart and empathy for his student and trying to do what was best for her. And he just framed some things in that conversation that just affirmed and also pushed my thinking about the work that we do. And it was invigorating, like to just listen to that and go, yeah, all right, like let's go. And I hope there's more and more of those kind of vibes as we enter the summer and get back to even a more less tumultuous year next year. Fingers crossed. I'm going to do that. But anything wrap up before we move on to the learn? Then let's do it. The learn for this week. So this gets tough because sometimes the things that we love are the things that we learn, and kind of vice versa. And so, as Jeff McQuiston pointed out when he was on here, that there's some unlearning sometimes and there's some relearning sometimes. And I like thinking about that. So Ben, what was your learn for this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mimeo systems. To try and make a long story short, we had an elementary teacher in one of our schools reach out to me a while back. Her Mimeo system was not working, and so I went out and tried to help, and I was only able to get it so far. Like, we got the software on, and it kind of looked like it was going to work, but the styluses that make it like interactive, like a Mimeo should be, didn't work. So I reached out. I took pictures of all the equipment she had, and I reached out to Dustin Frank. He was formerly with Engaging Technologies. The company's now KCAV. And so Dustin graciously volunteered to meet me at this school and get this teacher's Mimeo system working, and which he was able to do. And then he did some really quick, like half hour, 45 minutes worth of just training of all the cool lessons and things like that you can do with Mimeo systems, as an elementary teacher. And it just blew my mind. Like, I learned so much in just that short period of time. And I think to myself, what a cool tool to get kids up and moving around and interacting with the content. So that was my big learn.
That's awesome. So what is a Mimeo? Like, what is it? A smart board? Is it something else?
Basically, it operates like a smart board, but you don't have to have the board, so to speak. So, it's a projector that has like a camera and a sensor on it. And then it comes with styluses that, the kids can use to drag and drop or draw their letters or their numbers and that. So basically it's a much cheaper solution to an interactive board than a smart board, if that makes any sense at all.
And so I suppose if somebody writes on it with a regular marker, it's not actually a board. So it's not like a disaster, right? It's just like a projector.
Yeah, exactly. So most teachers just have like a regular whiteboard, and then they mount the Mimeo projector above it, and that's all you need. So it's like, I think Dustin said those run like around $800 brand new, whereas like we all know how much smart boards used to cost when those first came out. Those were all, those were definitely a lot more expensive. So it's kind of a cool solution. And I knew next to nothing about them when I first started here as a tech integration person, because you primarily see them, in elementary, especially lower elementary classrooms. And I was always more of a high school guy. So I knew next to nothing, and I had a lot to learn.
That's a fun flex, though, whenever you kind of come from one background. Like, that was, at least when I was in Westside, I got a chance to work with K2 after coming out of a secondary classroom, and it was a blast. Like, I had so much fun, but I did have a lot to learn, too.
Sure.
That was really great. I thought it was like a mimeograph and could almost smell it. Yeah.
What is a mimeograph? I'm too young to know. Just kidding.
Is that the old thing?
With the carbon copy?
Yeah.
If you had a lot to run off, you basically got high from the ink smell. I think that's what she's talking about.
The good old times.
Hopefully she'll comment again and tell me if I'm right or not.
Gosh. Well, so that's fun. Sarah, what was your learn from this week?
Well, I just wanted to compliment Ben on your tenacity. I think tech integrationists are like the most patient, tenacious people. Like, yesterday, my iPad wouldn't work, and I was like 2 minutes into it, and I'm like, forget it. Like, iPads don't work anymore. Like, I'm done. Like, shut it down. So kudos to you. So I actually did a training yesterday online through ESU 3 about Dr. Gusky and the 5 levels of professional learning planning, which was so interesting. He just talks a lot about backwards design and actually looking at the students first. So talking about the students, Andrew, like you had said, that are impactful and the great learning that means something to them. Dr. Gusky just talked a lot about how we need to really think about the impact that whatever PD we're talking about has on students. And then not only that, but like how you would measure it, which was super interesting to me, to think about all of the different programs that we offer in the ESUs, to really think about how it would impact the students, and then how you can measure the growth that your PD has on students. And what evidence you would collect for students. And I thought it was just really impactful, because when we think about our teachers and how tenacious they are, like you said, and how much they fight for their students, teachers don't want to risk their students unless they know that whatever change they're making is going to work. And that was just really eye-opening to me as a professional development leader. How can I show teachers evidence that indicates that our PD is going to make a significant difference for their students so that they're not risking their education for something they haven't really bought into. And so that was really eye-opening to me, and I really enjoyed learning about that. And something that he said, that it was kind of a silly quote, but he said, even if you work with people who work with kids, you have to keep the students in mind, because that's who it ultimately impacts. And I needed to hear that. So I loved that. And I learned about that.
Yeah, and you're right. It happens so frequently where it's the thing that we learn to get most excited about is nearest and dearest to our heart, and that's it can double most weeks in that way. And gosh, so much there. And I'm getting back to that podcast too, and thinking about Mr. Berzina and this thought of trying to capture, like he shared, like as that from that classroom practitioner's lens, just how after 20 some odd years of teaching, the content wasn't the thing for him anymore. And not because it didn't matter. It's just because he's that stinking good at it. and for him, it's more about, those subtleties of getting to know his learners and thinking flexibly about how to respond to those needs and dialing in an accommodation and what it means to try to do that and do that well. And the art of teaching. And you're right. I think when you start to work in those PD spaces with teachers where they have a familiarity with and a confidence in the experiences that they're providing, you're going to need those other pieces. And hopefully it'll integrate into what they already know to be true. And I think in those instances where that happens, that's where you really get like impactful PD that moves things forward. So I want to pick your brain. So we're going to talk more about this like another time, because that sounds like a great training. That sounds like that was a great training.
It was.
So Aaron, what was something you learned this week?
Well, as Sarah alluded to, we have very top tier professional development officer at ESU 3, and was also Thomas Gusky from ESU 3. I was with the MTSS group, and we talked a lot about evaluating the system that can obviously be huge when we start to look at it, but also trying to determine how impactful we were as professional developers on something as large as that. So how do we take, so for instance, we're meeting with our high schools 4 times a year. How do we know that the October meeting was successful before we have to wait an entire year to see what changed in their system and what student outcomes were? So just a lot of head scratching conversations. And sometimes I think that's really, really healthy. Kind of shifts your perspective on your work a little bit there. And then can I share one more, Andrew? Because this one came to mind this morning. And this is 100% personal, but I'm going to make it an educational thing because it's blowing my mind. I got a little guy. He's 7 years old, and he is obsessed with Star Wars. And so obsessed with Star Wars that he's like diving into these YouTube videos that give these long backstories on the characters. And so he'll come up to me and tell me these droid names and this like why Boba Fett didn't die in this monster's belly and everything, and these huge stories for every single Star Wars character out there. And what I keep thinking is that he's not the only 7-year-old that's doing this with a passion right now. And I just absolutely love that. Like, I love that our kiddos have access to information like that, where they can get so deep into their passions. I can't wait for these kiddos to be the high schoolers, the entrepreneurs of tomorrow, because I think they're so passionate about stuff and they're so used to pouring themselves into it that I think we're going to see some great outcomes of that in the future. I think we already are to some degree, but I just sat and thought, man, when I was a little kid, that probably would have taken me forever to read in like the Star Wars encyclopedia, and it would have been like 2 sentences, right? And now he knows Boba Fett's middle name or something. So I'm just loving being able to be a part of that, because I'm a secondary guy by background, so I didn't get to see. Usually they were kind of snarky teenagers by the time they hit me, but no, I'm just kidding.
I love that. It reminds me, I had a student one time, they were supposed to be doing small group work, and I taught high school, and this kid had his Chromebook in his lap, like secretly on something, and I walked by like ready to be like, get off of Facebook or whatever. He was on a Wikipedia reading all about some Lord of the Rings character, and I'm like, I can't really fault you for that. Like, good for you for like developing your literary awareness and knowledge. And like, it was like this really complicated article. So I think that is awesome when kids get into something that much that they're willing to go the extra mile and gain the knowledge themselves. Because just think about how impactful that is just on their researching skills and on their knowledge and comprehension and connection to other things. I just love that. And they just have everything at their fingertips right now.
Gosh, and I'll play off of what Aaron said here too, and dovetail it even into my learn for this week. But so, Aaron, I listened to a podcast not too long ago that was talking about how brands like Star Wars stopped focusing in on them being only in that movie space, and they have been across that for quite some time, but really starting, and Marvel does this exceptionally as well, like creating a universe where maybe movies aren't your thing, so TV shows, or maybe it's neither of those, and you get more like comics or some sort of like internet site that you can go like and just trying to really share the narrative of the universe in spots across all of those formats that almost like if you want to submerge yourself in, you have to engage across all platforms.
Right.
And that's a different way to think about building community around a topic of interest. And I've found that really interesting to start to think about, like, what does that look like maybe almost in an education context where, if statewide, if we could find ways to even enhance, our ESU's connection with the classroom teachers and with school leaders and all at these different levels, is there a way to sort of be present across a number of mediums and to kind of have different resources in different spaces? And one of the Related 4 work things that we're doing, this is part of my learn, I guess, is working on personalized professional learning. And we've had some really kind of intense conversations about what in the world does that look like if you're going to do some of that on demand, because there's a lot of great things out there already. So do we want to duplicate that? Probably not. And what are some new ways to think through? Because gosh, I mean, Apple and Google and all these companies have all the resources and people in the world to get in front of things. And so if you're going to try to do something different than where they're going, it's kind of a head scratcher. Should we really venture down that road? And so I've got a chance to learn this week a lot about, or at least think through what that could potentially look like. And I've learned about Skill Space this week, which is a place you can go and have a conversation. It's purely audio, and they're just getting started, but it's through like Swivel, and I believe Microsoft is kind of the parent company for them. But what it would look like to maybe, I don't know, have a calendar sign up and a teacher who is a team of one, someplace where they can't collaborate with someone very easily, and they would just put their name down and connect with somebody in a different part of Nebraska who's teaching the same class, and just have an informal conversation that doesn't have to be structured, but might establish a relationship there. And love that. ISTE is actually making an effort in that area. And so ISTE Loop is something they're doing now where it's almost like an education dating profile. So you enter in all the things that you're kind of interested in and nerdy about, and then they send you times each week, and you can just pick a time to meet somebody random that they feel like would be interested in something, in having a conversation about those same topics. And that's been really fun to learn about those kind of things and start to think about what we might be able to do within our own context here. So thoughts on any of that? I don't know.
That's cool. It's like modern pen pals, like teacher pen pals. That's cool.
That's a great way to frame it. I really like that, actually. Yeah, for sure. And that's where I feel like the best ideas come from sometimes. I think Aaron and I were talking about this last week. It's like, it's in the informal conversations at the conference afterwards when you're sitting down around 4 p.m. Around a table. And that's as far as I'll get to the explanation of what that looks like. But then you throw out the thing you're passionate about, the thing you care about, the thing that's working for you in your context. And you go, that sounds great. And take that with you back to wherever your context is. More of that, please. I love that.
Well, just as a mathematician, I love the idea that I feel like overall the kids are getting to the point where if they have a problem or a question, they're ready to take it on and go find the answer themselves. They'll hunt things down, and if we can get kind of like Andrew said, if we can get that to translate into the classroom, because often it doesn't always, that doesn't always follow that format. But the kids certainly, they have it, right? I mean, that's what they are used to now with upbringing versus what we were kind of used to getting spoon-fed information. They'll just go find it. They'll find it one way or another. They'll track something down. They'll track someone down. And that's where even these YouTube videos he watches, I love, because it's just some other random Star Wars fan. It's not like a Star Wars expert, right? George Lucas doesn't support this guy. It's just somebody who loves Boba Fett as much as he does and made a video about it. So it's really that community of learning, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, and I feel like with my own kiddos in the spring of 2020 when we were at home, my son at 6 years old grew in his capacities to do that well. And that agency piece. And so you'd hate to see us go back to like a sit and get traditional, at least like 100% of the time. There's some benefit to sit and get, I still think. Got to learn sometimes like that. But yeah, after he's been so used to driving everything, like to not have the opportunity to continue to grow that, I think would be to his detriment. And so I'm with you on all that. So, well, as always, a great chat here on a Friday. Love getting a chance to connect with people. And so thank you, Ben, Sarah, and Aaron for taking the time. Thanks to those that are tuning in live or that watch this afterwards. I always appreciate your comments. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Friday Love and Learn. And until then, have a great weekend and a great rest of next week. See ya.